Hey,
what's up?
Welcome to the Daily's first Newsroom Reviews. I'm Mo,
I'm Jacob.
and we're here to talk about Migos culture. Get educated. Okay, so I think we can just dive in. You want to start with the first song?
Yeah, I mean, we've been chatting about this for a little while, and we can just keep the conversation going. I don't know. I mean, overall, what did you think? How does this stand based on your previous Migos listening experience? Where does it stand for you?
I think like a lot of people, I got into them through singles. Obviously, Versace, Fight Night. But the first full project I heard by them was YRN from last year.
The mixtape YRN 2 or the first album?
No, the first album, the 2015 album.
Young Rich Nation?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was that one. But yeah, that had like the Young Thug feature on there, which I mean I wouldn't have said no to this time around. But speaking of features, I mean, so obviously everyone knew of the Lil Uzi one because of Bad and Bougie.
Yeah. Big single.
Yeah, big single for them, but I think a wrong choice. I guess they didn't know it was going to go number one, but to not put Takeoff on it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, he said he was going to add a verse, so hopefully that happens.
I hope they replace Lil Uzi Vert with a Takeoff verse, honestly.
So, I mean, would you say that's the worst feature, or would you say DJ Khaled, like if you count that a feature?
I mean, DJ Khaled, you have to count it as a feature. I mean, and yes, that is the worst one because he just says, you know, fuck boys, bow down.
Yeah, he's just yelling.
Great. And, you know, that's cool, but, you know, they don't need DJ Khaled to say that for them.
Yep.
So DJ Khaled is my least favorite, which is kind of an easy pick. Lil Uzi Vert, didn't care for his feature at all. No. You know, I want to like the guy, kind of, just because there's so much hype behind him.
Yeah,
but like...
I mean, I gave him a shot.
I gave him a shot. I listened to a tape, didn't care for it, don't care for this verse.
Yeah,
a lot of people seem to, though.
Yeah, no, not me.
Yeah.
But as far as, I think the best features are 2 Chainz and Travis Scott. Gucci obviously like would blend in really well with Migos, but I think, I mean, Zaytoven produces at least 2 that I know on this album. And Gucci's on neither of those. He's on the one that's not produced by Zaytoven. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but love Gucci just because I think there's a quality to his voice, especially now that he's, you know, out of jail and he's sober and he's cleaned up. He just sounds, I don't know, there's like a charisma to Gucci Mane that is just like, he could say anything. He could rap the phone book over a beat like this, and it's just like, yeah, Gucci, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and when he says like, I'm a murderer, but I don't promote violence, like that's a great line to end out with because it's true. It's you know, it's real life.
Yeah, and I think so. I don't think his verse is bad. I think it was a bit underwhelming from what I was expecting, and I do think Travis and 2 Chainz have better verses on here. Travis on Kelly Price, 2 Chainz on Deads, and those are both near the end. So I think like that feature game doesn't really start to shine till the end. Which is fine because Migos is 3 people, of course. Like, I don't think they don't really need that many features.
They really don't because, I mean, they all flow. So, I mean, the chemistry on this album is fantastic. And you've got to really appreciate that, you know, this is a rap group of 3 guys, you know. They've got to constantly be on their game, you know. I'm not sure to what extent they, like, compete with each other to try and outdo each other. But they just have, you know, they have so much fun, you know. It's like there's so much chemistry between Quavo, Takeoff, and Offset that you can't really imagine them putting out a full project on their own.
Oh, yeah.
They're, like, together like this machine, you know.
And I hate people pushing for them to break up. They're like, Quavo needs to go solo. I'm like, no. Like, appreciate groups while they're here because I think in hip-hop it's been a trend for like over the years to go from groups like, you know, Tribe Called Quest, NWA, to more like being more of a solo genre where it's like all about the star himself, the rapper. I think there's good groups out there like Flatbush Zombies, like Migos, like Race Remmer doing good like group rap.
Yeah, exactly.
And this, I mean, I don't think there's a single bad song on here. I will listen to all these songs.
Yeah, totally.
On the intro, Culture, I will skip DJ Khaled, but for like their verses on there for just an intro that seemed like semi like a throwaway, just like to introduce the album, like it's really good. And I think Takeoff shines on that one. The aim at his eye today line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Takeoff definitely kills that first bit, and you know, it's not the most exciting intro to just like you're putting on this album and then DJ Khaled is yelling at you. Not necessarily what you want to kick off a Migos record, but I mean, once it gets going, I mean, T-Shirt, excellent song. Call Casting, my favorite on the record.
Okay, wow.
Bad and Bougie, certified hit.
Hold on, so Call Casting, I mean, I would agree that would you agree the singles on the album were like basically like the group of like the best songs.
I honestly think that they could have picked pretty much any of these songs to be singles.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of them would have worked. I mean, Brown Paper Bag could have worked, I think.
Yeah.
Kelly Price is a little bit too long, but I think that it definitely has qualities of a single.
Yeah. So
All Ass could have been a single, I think.
Yeah. So my favorite track off this was T-Shirt, and so the singles were obviously Bad and Bougie. Everyone knows that one. But T-Shirt came out after. No, sorry. Call Casting came out. And then T-Shirt, and then What the Price.
Yeah.
And those were the 4 singles. Those are 4 of the best songs on the album. It's hard, I think, to rank all the songs just because they're all good. But yeah, I mean, I would say my favorite is T-Shirt. And really something throughout that I've noticed, like you were saying how cohesive they've gotten. I think this album is the best example of Migos being able to flow off of each other so well.
Yeah.
It's not like no abrupt like cuts between their verses, like. And I think a lot of that is owed to the good production on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got like a lot of like really good producers. Zaytoven, who's one of them, I think it's on Get Right Witcha. Murder Beats. Oh my gosh. That one's crazy.
Metro Boomin, of course.
Metro,
you
obviously.
Can never go wrong with Metro Boomin.
And then like there's really a variety I think of in the production on here. You know, trap catches a lot of flack for having a lot of similar production. But like Out Your Way and What the Price are sort of like slower, like more like sentimental songs, and then you go into things obviously like Bad and Bougie or Big on Big that are like pretty boastful.
There's a lot of ambition in this record. I think Migos are showing more ambition than they've showed on previous projects.
Yeah.
I think the album Young Rich Nation kind of suffered. I think it was a bit less exciting than it should have been.
Yeah.
It obviously didn't perform as well with critics or I guess we don't know how well Culture sold yet. We'll find that out pretty soon.
First week sales.
I think that this album outshines that record and the past couple mixtapes they've done completely. You know, like you were saying, there's not really a bad song on this record.
No.
You know? I mean, I guess you can get into the complaint of you get sort of a lot of lyrical sameness.
Oh, but I didn't want to touch on this.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely what's keeping me from falling in love with this record, because as good as I think it is, it doesn't carry the lyrical versatility that like Rodeo by Travis Scott has, or something like that. Like that is something I consider more of a masterpiece. I think this is on the way there. There's definitely a lot of Travis Scott influence.
Oh yeah, with the humming, like the Quavo humming especially.
Yeah, but there's just a lot of repetition, you know. There's definitely things that Migos could do to step up their game, and I think that this proves that they're capable of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the same time, though, I think, there's a lot of lyrical sameness, but I think that's something, as someone like who listens to a lot of trap music, I've come to accept on some terms. And like a trap, like what I call a trap classic that I compare things to is DS2 by Future. I like to compare a lot of like the trap albums I listen to that one. And I think this one, it's better than it in some respects because I think it's shorter. And it reduces some of that repetition.
Yeah, definitely.
And with trap music, it sounds silly, but I like to think of it sort of like a sonnet, because what's the point of a sonnet? And like the hundreds of sonnets that have been, thousands of sonnets that have been written, is to tell someone you love them in as many different ways as possible within a structure of 14 lines, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, you have 16 bars, and you're the Migos, and you're here to tell someone how much drugs you do, how much sex you're having, and how much better you are than them. And just the amount of ways they come up with to do that on this album are ridiculous. And there's a lot of really quotable lines, and I think because of that, it's going to keep getting a lot of plays from me.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, that they're definitely more creative with it than a lot of artists in this genre are. Yeah. You could definitely do far worse than Migos, and I think it's unfair to sort of group them with this. A lot of people are talking about mumble rap as if it's a thing. I don't think Migos fits into that at all. I mean, they do use autotune to an extent, but I mean...
But you can understand what they're saying.
I mean, and the skill that these guys have, the rapping that they're doing, is really unlike a lot of, people are copying them, I mean, there's a Migos flow.
I mean, they brought back, like, the triplet flow is what they call it. Like three... what is it? It's three, like...
Three syllables.
3 syllables per beat, like per note.
Iambic.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kind of thing.
It's crazy. I mean, and that came from Atlanta, so obviously influenced them. And they call it culture for a reason. They're trying to. A lot of people, not just them, but are dismissive of trap music. And this is like just as relevant to like rap music in 2017 as like the next Drake project. Which I mean, this is better than Views.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. I like what you said about it being called culture. I mean, they do pay a lot of tribute, I think, throughout this album. There's a lot of samples that I went, that I was reading up on. There's some samples of other trap songs from earlier on.
Yeah.
The chorus from T-Shirt, as a lot of people know, is a chorus from a song from the mid-2000s. It's like an Atlanta underground hit that,
by,
I've never heard.
D4L, I think.
I'd certainly never heard it before. But I actually went and listened to it, and I thought it was pretty cool that they decided to do that. So they're definitely, when they mean culture, they really mean culture.
Yeah.
And, we're kind of, Quavo says on the album, like, if you don't know the culture, shut up. So maybe maybe we're the exact
and if you don't understand
that he doesn't want talking about the album.
If you don't understand it, DJ Khaled is there to yell at you about how this is about the culture. So we were talking about how good all three of them are, but I think this question's bound to come up. If you had to pick, who is the best on this album of the three?
I think Offset gave a really, really great performance throughout, but I think Takeoff is my personal favorite. Just because I just kind of like his voice more than I like the other two's voice. I think Quavo kind of underperforms on this one a bit. There are some lines that he throws out, some hooks that he comes up with that, sometimes when he has the hook on the album, he also has the weakest verse on that song.
He definitely...
When he's got a hook on a song, he sometimes has the weakest verse on that song.
I do think they've done a better job of diversifying who gets the hooks on each song. So usually it's like, all right, the other two are rapping machines, and Quavo's going to come in here and deliver the soft, nice, auto-tuned hook. But in here, Takeoff gets the hook on Call Casting. Offset gets it on Brown Paper Bag.
Yep.
Offset obviously got it on Bad and Bougie, and everyone loves that. It's their first #1. So I think it does. Bad and Bougie is a testament to the other two getting more credit. Obviously Takeoff isn't on it, but at least Offset getting more credit.
Yeah, and then you got Quavo killing the hook. Kelly Price, All Ass.
Yeah. T-Shirt.
Does he do Deads? I think he does Deads.
Yeah, I think they all sort of do it, but his voice is leveled higher than theirs.
Yeah.
So it sounds mostly like him. It's kind of layered.
Slippery. That's a great hook.
So yeah, Quavo is still in a sense the hook machine. But
I think we kind of have to talk about the sort of Quavo-sized elephant in the room, which is when he randomly on Get Right, which drops a kind of a super outdated,
just a racist slur. He just
Asian
goes
people.
for it.
And I feel like it seems like the kind of thing where they just don't know. You know what I mean? They just don't understand, maybe.
Not to cut them, they shouldn't do it next time.
They should
but to cut them some slack. But he also implicates Takeoff in it because he's behind him ad-libbing.
Yeah,
he ad-libs the racial slur
it makes
again.
It twice as bad, literally.
Yeah.
It's one thing if it's just kind of a throwaway line, but if it's important enough that it deserves its own ad-lib at the end, that's 2 out of 3 Migos that are this is a good idea to repeat this. Maybe no one told them, or
that, this
maybe
isn't cool
someone
anymore.
told them and they were like, no, we are going to... And apparently they've done this before too, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
the music industry in general has a lot of catching up to do, not just hip hop, but a lot of genres have a lot of catching up.
I think even without that racist slur, Quavo I think had the weakest verse on Get Right With Ya.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Offset. Oh my God! If you have to listen to one verse on this album, listen to Offset on Get Right With Ya, where he starts with "In the kitchen with a lot of white." It's a crazy verse.
And then they kind of save it with "Out Your Way," which is a very different song for them because all these songs you kind of get a portrayal of women that is more objectifying, more related to sex. It's just kind of the lifestyle they're living. It's just kind of how they're doing it. And then "Out Your Way" is you're always going out your way for us. Thank you for putting up with. I'm doing this thing now, and I guess they're just kind of paying tribute to the whichever women have stuck by them through it all. I'm not sure if they're referring to a relationship or if they're referring to their female family members.
I think it's interesting.
I thought it was a fitting closer.
I think it's interesting on these kind of albums. No, I definitely think it's a fitting closer. But as these artists who are this lifestyle they're talking about, where they had to sell drugs, and it was obviously not a good lifestyle for them, but it pervades their lyrics. And I'm wondering how far they're getting away from that now that they're getting wealthier and more famous. They just had their #1 hit. I'm wondering they're gonna have to eventually change up the content of their lyrics. And I do, obviously it was not the time yet. But like I said, the amount of ways they say the same thing is is crazy. Like just the references they make to like cooking drugs, to cocaine, it's nuts.
I mean, if they want to drop another mixtape, YRN3, No Label 3, whatever. If they want to drop another mixtape of stuff like this, they can do that, whatever. But I think for their next album, whether it's next year or 2019 or whenever they drop it, I would, like you said, I want to see some different themes, some different lyrical content, just some more ambition. I feel like, it's sort of like what Young Thug did with Jeffrey last year. He took the genre and he elevated it by injecting so much creative energy and so much weirdness into it that he turned it into something completely different. I think Migos totally have the capacity to do that.
They do have that. Like, look at their videos. They're so eclectic in their videos that like
they're very smart guys. I think.
I think so
they're
too.
Smart songwriters, and they're smart. They're good at writing melodies and hooks.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which is a lot of the times what saves like a song, Sometimes I'll go into a song and the verses will be okay.
Yeah.
Like What the Price, Like the song stuck out with me because it has a great hook.
Yeah.
And I went back to read the, verses and listen to them again. None of the verses I thought were exceptionally great on that track. And,
I think that happens.
The hook totally saves it.
The hook saves it, and I think a lot of like some of these tracks, some of them stick out to me because of the catchy verses and the verses I like so much.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, like on some of the ones that have the best hooks, I can't like really remember specifics about each verse. I like remember like obviously like a general sense of I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But I like think about the chorus every time I think about that song.
Yeah.
Or a few of the other songs like Big on Big. The one that has those sweet keys from Zaytoven.
So good.
But I'm glad they're working with a bunch of other producers. The producers, I mean, I think a lot of them are Atlanta and like South based, like obviously Zaytoven, Metro Boomin.
I don't know where 808 Mafia is from. I don't
either, but I know like I first like heard of them through Future and stuff, so I figure it's the same circles.
Keeping it local.
One that I really like the beat on T-Shirt.
Yeah.
And that's
Me
Nard
too.
and B.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I've heard them on is Future's "You Deserve It" before he really blew up. And I knew I had I recognized their producer
Nard
tag.
and B.
Yeah. So I had to go look that up.
Nice.
But yeah. We mentioned 2 Chainz already, but just like his flow when he comes
Definitely
in on Dead's
guest verse on
Jesus.
the record. I like that.
Yeah, I always have to replay that.
Yep. I mean, do you want to go ahead and share just kind of a final sort of thought?
Yeah.
Just final thoughts on the record?
Yeah. All right, so if you're still unsure whether you want to listen to this, I definitely say do so, because not a bad song on here out of 13. And even if you think some of them are repetitive, you're going to find favorites you're going to go back to. I gotta give the best performance on here, I think, to I don't know, I would say Quavo probably, just because of all the hooks.
Yeah.
Verse-wise, I probably wouldn't give it to Quavo. I'd probably give it to Takeoff or Offset. But
It's hard.
I like to not pick because
like
they're
picking your favorite
Migos.
child.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not picking my favorite child. Just listen to this album. Do it.
I guess for me, I may not love it as much as Moh does, but I think it's a very focused album. I think it's Migos' best project so far. I think it's consistent. It doesn't really run too long. It's an hour, 13 tracks. Put it on in the background. You're guaranteed to hear something that grabs your attention. I think it struggles in the fact that it puts constraints on itself. Quavo, Takeoff, and Offset are all very capable rappers, singers, and songwriters, and their talent seems to only grow as they continue to write songs together. In the future, I really hope to see Migos sort of like take more time to hone their craft, not worry about deadlines or capitalizing on putting out another hit now.
I think they had to capitalize on Bad and Bougie this time.
Yeah, right, because I think that they have it in them to put out an album that is consistently fantastic, not just consistently good.
Yeah.
I think Culture is consistently good, and I think it's the closest they've come to putting out like their opus.
Yeah.
But I still think we're going to see some more from Migos, and I think that they're going to outperform this record here.
Cool.
I'm feeling good about it, and I guess we'll see if I'm listening to it in a few months from now, or if something else will come along and I'll forget about this record.
Yeah, I mean, we'll always have their ad libs. So.
True. Yes. Pot.